Hey there! Today we're going to talk about one of the most dazzling sights in our night sky. You've probably seen it 1,000 times, but do you really know what you're looking at? We're diving into the planet Venus. You know the one I'm talking about, right? The sun has just dipped below the horizon, the sky is that perfect shade of twilight blue, and bam, there it is. This incredibly bright point of light that just hangs there. It's way too bright to be a regular star, and it doesn't really twinkle. So what is that thing? Well, surprise! That's no star. For centuries, people have marveled at that light. And we now know it's our planetary neighbor Venus. And honestly, it's one of the coolest and easiest things you can spot in the entire sky. So the big question is, why? What's its secret? What makes Venus so ridiculously bright that it outshines everything else up there? Well, it turns out there are three main reasons. First off, it's one of our closest neighbors in a solar system. That proximity gives it a huge advantage in the brightness department. Then, you've got to think of Venus as being wrapped in a giant mirror. It's covered in these super reflective clouds that bounce a ton of sunlight right back at us. And finally, because its orbit is closer to the sun than ours, we almost always see it against a dark twilight sky, which really makes it pop. So when you add all that up, what do you get? You get the most brilliant thing you can possibly see in the night sky, besides our own moon. Seriously, no star, no other planet even comes close. All right, now for the fun part. How can you actually go out and find Venus for yourself? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of when and where to look for our neighbor. This is the question that trips up a lot of people just starting out. You might think you can just go outside at any time of night and search for the brightest object, but with Venus, it's not quite that simple. There's one golden rule you absolutely have to know. And here it is. You will never, ever see Venus at midnight. Because its orbit is inside of Earth's, it's kind of tethered to the sun from our point of view. It either follows the sun down after sunset, or it leads the sun up before sunrise. That's it. This gives Venus two distinct personalities. For several months, it'll play the part of the evening star, this amazing beacon in the west right after the sun goes down. Then it'll disappear for a little while and pop back up as the morning star, completely dominating the eastern sky before sunrise. It's so different that ancient astronomers were convinced they were two totally separate objects. So here's your cheat sheet. It's super simple. Go outside during twilight. Look in the right direction, west for the evening, east for the morning, and just find the brightest, most steady-looking point of light up there. That's it. That's Venus. No telescope needed, no fancy star charts. You could probably do it tonight. Okay, so you've found it with your own eyes. But what if you've got a pair of binoculars, or maybe even a small telescope? What happens when you zoom in a little bit? This is where it gets really, really cool. This is just wild. Unlike stars, which are always just going to be tiny points of light no matter how hard you look, Venus actually shows phases, just like our moon does. And it happens for the exact same reason. As Venus orbits the sun, we here on Earth get to see different amounts of its sunlit side. You can actually watch it shift from a tiny, thin crescent to a half-lit disk, and then to a gibbous phase, where it's more than half full. And here's a fun little fact that might mess with your brain a bit. It actually looks biggest in the sky when it's just a thin crescent, because that's when it's closest to Earth in its orbit. So you can see its shape change over time, which is amazing. But, the next logical question is, can you see any details on the surface? Can you make out any mountains or volcanoes or anything like that? The short answer is a very simple and very definitive no. You can't see the surface at all, which of course just begs the next question. Why not? Well, the reason is actually tied to the very thing that makes it so bright. Venus is perpetually wrapped up in this incredibly thick, planet-wide blanket of clouds. And these aren't the fluffy water clouds we have on Earth. We're talking about clouds made of sulfuric acid. They are so dense that no telescope using normal light can ever peek through to the surface below. So that beautiful, serene point of light you see in the sky is hiding a pretty intense secret. And this is where the story of Venus takes a dramatic turn, from a beautiful sight to a truly extreme and, frankly, terrifying world. Venus is often called Earth's sister planet because they're about the same size. But honestly, they're more like estranged evil twins. Just look at this comparison. Average temperature on Earth is a comfortable 59 degrees Fahrenheit. On Venus, it's a staggering 869 degrees. The surface pressure is over 90 times what we experience here. It would crush you like a soda can. Let's just focus on that temperature for a second. 465 degrees Celsius. That is hotter than the surface of Mercury, even though Mercury is way closer to the sun. To put it another way, it's hot enough to melt lead. It is a truly alien, brutal environment. So why is it so incredibly hot? It all comes down to Venus's super thick atmosphere, which is mostly carbon dioxide. It acts like a giant heavy blanket, trapping the sun's heat and creating what scientists call a runaway greenhouse effect. It's a powerful reminder of how planetary climates can go to some really wild extremes. And that's the incredible paradox of Venus, isn't it? From our backyards, it is a peaceful, beautiful beacon of light, but up close, it is one of the most violent and inhospitable places we have ever discovered. But let's bring it all back home, to you, standing in your own backyard. You don't need to know all the complex science to appreciate the sky. As the source material says so well, getting into astronomy, it really just starts with the simple habit of looking up. And that's exactly why Venus is the perfect gateway. You don't need a fancy telescope or a degree in physics. It's right there for you, shining bright even through city lights, and it's always doing something interesting, whether it's dominating the evening or heralding the dawn. So the next time you see that brilliant light hanging in the twilight, just take a moment. Think about the phases you could see with some simple binoculars and the hellish world hidden beneath those bright, reflective clouds. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets are hiding up there, right in plain sight?